has been about a month since the last video dropped of the Porsche. We have not been that busy on the Porsche. I have been busy, trust me, I have been very busy making sure that I'm mentally prepared for the rest of my life and all that kind of fun stuff. But the Porsche itself hasn't had much progress on it. I did remove the windshield, I did remove the dash pad. We're getting ready for the haltech IC7 digital dash installation. We'll go through that. But there's a few other things that I've just been cleaning up and this, that, and the other. So let's kind of dive into it. We also hit 800 subscribers, which is huge for this channel, this little channel of mine. And then I also heard everyone's comments on the music and the audio. So I got new microphones, and we're actually just going to try and raw dog this, and there's going to be no audio, or if there is, it's going to be for montages. So sit back, relax, hopefully you enjoy this beautiful cinematic experience that is this project. You want to go really, really slowly. You don't want to bend too much. They will come out of shape. They're going to. But there's a way to get them back into shape. You know, you basically just push them back down in. And that gets the form back. All right, so I basically have the top completely off, and you can see that she wants to come out. So go onto the other side, give it a little wiggle, and then we should be able to pull it out without cracking it. There you go. So now that the windshield is removed, we can undo this screw, this one, there's another one and another one up there. We can get the dash pad off so we can start looking at how we're going to modify for the haltech dash. Take out the defroster caps. One, grab the other one. You can see how cracked this dash is. But that should give us, should be able to take it off now. Wow, there's rust on this. That means there was a leak on the inside of the car. Great. There's still 2 screws, I think, that hold the dash pad on. Maybe not. Maybe it's glue. I mean, you can hear it just cracking. Hi-yi-yi. Crack, crack, crackle 'em, snap, crackle 'em, pop, I reckon. All right, take 2. Now that everything's disconnected, the dash is out. I'm gonna cut this entire piece out, leave some metal along the sides so that we can keep the shape. And then this is all going to be removed so that we can put a flat plate in. We'll weld that up, and then we can actually position the haltech IC7 digital dash into that, make sure all the mounting things happen, and make sure that we've got all the good wiring. So I'm really excited to get into that. I think that that's going to be a fun little project, and once the material arrives, we'll start cutting. I should be making the haltech order either today or tomorrow, now that they've got their Black Friday sales out. So I think that's going to be the next big purchase, as well as all the material to start like welding things up. I'm probably going to go with a carbon dash pad. They're actually reasonably cheap, and it will just get rid of all of these holes and all that kind of stuff. You could go the full hog and cut it all out and, you know, do all of that, but that would require me to actually put a full roll cage in here, which I'm not willing to do just yet. So yeah, I think we'll just get a carbon dash pad. We'll weld up this so that there's somewhere for the IC7 to go, and then we'll get everything connected with the CAN hub and all of that. So that's also going to be part of my haltech order, and I might even buy the PD16. We'll see how I'm feeling there. I also took some time to clean this up, so I ground down a lot of the rust here, surface rust. You can see that there is some pitting here, and then obviously there's a hole here as well as up here. You can see all the pitting of the metal as well. So obviously this had some water in here for quite some time. That's what causes the rust and the pitting. But for the most part, this is all very clean up in here. And then I got this all down to bare metal, and we can, and then I just sprayed it with some Steelit. So these holes will be patched up. This one too. I need to take the sound deadening out still here, as well as you know, you can see that rust spot there. So that's kind of where we're at in the seat section. In the meantime, I'm going to take some measurements. I need to measure from here to there, and also there's a mount on that side to this side where I can actually then get some basically 2-inch straps made up by Send Cut Send, have them bend it, cut it, all that kind of good stuff, and then we can actually mount the fuel cell in and figure out what we're going to do about the fuel filler setup. So right now this would have originally gone into here. We no longer have any of that, so I'm half tempted to contact FuelSafe and actually see if they've got a plate that I can change out so that I can use this fuel cell with just a, you know, top mount filler. So that's the next step there. All right, take a couple of measurements. So inside seam, so let's do 23 inches by, what's that? It's gonna be basically 8. One strap might be enough actually. So we're gonna strap it and it'll basically push that all the way down. Oh, it smells good. Okay, so 23 to the inside seam, and then basically 8. Let's do 8. Then we can trim it down if we have to. All right, cool. So let's draw that up. I didn't record this, but I actually mounted these. So now the filter and the lift pump are actually mounted. So that's kind of the last step in here that needs to happen for the fuel system, at least mounting wise. This pump is not in use yet. It's not actually wired up at all. It's just one single pump and the lift pump. So when the time comes to do the chassis harness and redo all of that, then I will update all of that with the PD16. This is more or less me just talking and documenting this for myself. But I was looking at the 934s and the 935s, and they actually have a header tank in here. And that's used for the water-to-air intercoolers in the later model 935s and whatever. I am half tempted to do something similar. However, I just think that if I'm going to do that route, then the vacuum fillers and all that kind of stuff will have to be used for the bleeding. Otherwise, I've been looking at LSX conversions, And some of the companies that have been doing them in here have been basically putting a filler point here. That would actually work for us because it would be higher than the head outlet. We could actually run a filler here. So I'm going to measure up and actually see if I might even use a 3D scanner or the LiDAR scanner on my iPhone to at least position things. But yeah, that might be the first pass. As I've previously mentioned, I'm thinking about putting the water pump here. I'm actually going to grab one off of FCP Euro. It's one of the BMW N54 electric water pumps. And I'm going to see how it kind of fits in this area. I want to hide it, but I also want it to be, again, serviceable. So putting it down here, away from the wheel, all that kind of stuff gets it out of the way. But it's also extremely accessible, lifting up the car, and it'd be right here. So I think that's going to be the move there. The idea then is that from the fill point, I can actually just run a hose straight to the pump. And that means that I can then run the pump to help with the bleeding, so pushing coolant as I'm filling it up, which would be a huge thing to be able to just put the pump on without having to run the engine. I think that that's a big problem with a lot of these setups, is that people have to turn the engine on to actually bleed the coolant system. I don't want to do that, hence why the electric water pump would be a good option, and putting the fill point directly into the inlet, so running basically a swell pot as the fill point, is probably what I'm going to do. That should give us enough. And I've been doing a lot of research into like coolant systems as a whole, and the amount of hose that we're running, I think we're basically going to have 30 feet of hose of volume added to this system. So that's a lot of water. Otherwise, I've seen a lot of other cars that have water-cooled swaps. Put the header tank here and run the basically header hoses into the radiator, which is usually cut and put in here. We could run a header expansion tank here, and then just run small hoses along the side to the radiators that I'm going to put ultimately here. But there's a few weird points of that because of where the actual hoses would have to come out in here, and I just don't want to risk a fat tire hitting any of those hoses. So a few things that we can probably do is run them behind here if that is the route that we go. Otherwise, up above, which is where we should be running them. But again, that could, in fact, this area, I'm very concerned, is going to be a high point in the system. And so having like expansion ports come into that, or bleeder valves, might be necessary. But I'm just not sure yet until we actually start buying hose and mounting things and all of that kind of good stuff. While I'm waiting on the material, I've had quite a few questions about air breather setups, water setups, exhaust setups. All of that is still to be determined. The breather setup, so we've got one -8 that needs to come from there, and then a -8 that comes off of the valve cover. And the idea is that I'm just going to have a catch can over here somewhere. So I have the radium catch can just there. I need to make a bracket and figure out where I'm going to put it here. Exhaust, right now I'm just going to get a Ram Horn NA exhaust, basically dump it up and around, and then I'll cut it and do a 90-degree bend and just throw it out the side here somewhere. That's kind of where we're at. The turbo setup will happen at some point, but I really just want to drive this car. Water setup is a little bit different, a little bit harder, but ultimately I think I'm going to have a fill point here that is bracketed up against here, so we'll just, maybe we'll weld it, maybe we won't. And then the pump is going to hide, the electric water pump is going to hide down here as well. And then we'll run hoses, and I'm just waiting on CSF radiators to get me the prototype radiators that they've got going, but that'll come. Really, I think it's just, let's get the dash ready, let's get the seat subframe sorted, and then we can kind of also go through all of the rest of the electrical that's needed to get kind of the CAN hub system working. And for those wondering, I'm using these Hollyland Lark 2 microphones. So far they've come in pretty handy. They actually are very easy to use and connect right up to the iPhone that I record on. So very happy with that, and hopefully the sound quality is coming through and making sure that people understand that sound is the hardest part. And that's really it. There's really not much done in this video other than me rambling and making decisions for myself. I do have a few things that I need to order, so materials, get that seat subframe built, all that kind of fun stuff, as well as the haltech order. I don't know if it's just going to be the digital dash or the PD16 as well. See how I feel. But yeah, ultimately, happy holidays. Hopefully everyone stays safe this holiday season, and I'll see you in the next video. Body rock,